November 9, 1989, thousands swarmed the concrete slabs dividing Berlin. This is preserved as the ultimate triumph of human freedom over state control. We generally assume that when sledgehammers cracked the mortar, the ideological divide that had fractured the nation instantly dissolved into the rubble. But the data tells a different story. This map of modern Germany displays contemporary voting patterns and average economic income. Decades after the demolition, a stark, data-driven fault line remains burned into the country, tracing the exact coordinates of the old border. The division reaches into the most personal metrics of life. When we layer in statistics for clinical mental health diagnoses and daily consumer habits, the same boundary line emerges. The separation remains perfectly intact. German researchers coined a specific term for this persistent anomaly: Mauer im Kopf, the wall in the mind. The Berlin Wall operated as a massive, large-scale experiment in psychological conditioning. The concrete blocks and the miles of barbed wire were temporary scaffolding. They were only required to build a permanent, self-sustaining cage directly inside the human brain. The experiment began by slicing a unified city in half, locking a single population into two entirely distinct evolutionary chambers. This process of induced anthropological divergence forced citizens to adapt their behavior to entirely new, separate physical geometries. The border was engineered to induce cognitive paralysis, shifting the focus from simple security to the microarchitecture of the barrier itself. The Todesstreifen, the death strip, transformed empty space into a psychological weapon. Guards meticulously raked the sand to track the slightest footprint. This forced the observer's subconscious to realize that their very physical presence and weight had become a state liability. Hidden threats lay buried within the environment, from the Stalin lawn spikes designed to pierce feet to automated tripwire machine guns. Clinical, this was the state, employing strict operant conditioning on a national scale. The environment created a brutal stimulus-response loop. Passivity guaranteed survival in the monotony. Physical agency triggered a mechanical, certain death. This architectural gauntlet achieved its goal by replacing human hope with the absolute certainty of lethal consequences. But physical borders only provide partial control. For the conditioning to be total, the state had to build a wall inside the domestic lives of its citizens. The Stasi deployed a sprawling network of civilian informants that weaponized interpersonal relationships. Neighbors, spouses, and children became tools of state surveillance. Systemic paranoia takes a heavy biological toll. When you cannot trust those closest to you, the brain's threat detection centers remain in a state of perpetual high alert. This leads to learned helplessness, a psychological state where the mind simply stops attempting to assert its own autonomy. The spirit eventually breaks. The comfort of the cage becomes preferable to the psychological torment of constant, exhausting vigilance. Society willfully stopped fighting. When trapped between concrete walls and an invisible matrix of betrayal, submission was the only way to avoid absolute madness. The demolition of 1989 was a physical event, but the psychological divergence had already hardwired itself into the population's neural pathways. Modern architects of control have recognized that concrete, sand, and bullets are crude and inefficient tools for managing a population. We now willingly allow digital algorithms to construct personalized, frictionless Berlin walls around our own consciousness. Ideological echo chambers serve as the new borders. Our social timelines have become the digital version of the death strip, where even a single deviation from the group can result in swift social erasure. We no longer require armed guards to keep us isolated. The system has conditioned us to actively maintain our own boundaries in real time. The grand psychological experiment of Berlin never ended. It simply upgraded its architecture. Today, we are enthusiastically decorating the insides of our own cells.